Good evening, welcome to a special Hearthstone news update from Warcraft. I'm Hammy, hope you're well and good. Very excited. It's PAX East today over in the US, and Blizzard have announced none other than the newest adventure mode in the series. It is Blackrock Mountain. So we're going to be taking a little bit of a run through as my streaming software dramatically pans at this point in time over to the news on Blackrock Mountain. There we go. Without further ado, let's jump in. Adventure mode number 2. A little bit of pricing. The dollars there for you. It's the counting down dollars system. You can pre-order it all and get yourself a very shiny little Blackrock Mountain card back there in the middle. All 5 wings, $24 if you're working US style. 21 euros, 17.49 UK style, so comparable pricing to Curse of Nexramas. They did not announce anything to do, I think, with a free wing. However, let's wait and see. I don't think that came immediately last time either. And then it scales down the amount of pricing depending on whether you own wings. You can buy wings for 700 gold, so if you save up some gold, you can certainly crack it all open that way and not have to shell out your IRL monies if you really want to. But nice stuff, looking good. In terms of the format and what's coming, it is Blackrock Mountain. So if you're not a World of Warcraft player, or like me, you played World of Warcraft, you actually played in vanilla, so I should be familiar with all of this, but it's scratching the memory. As you know, World of Warcraft is a good 10 years old now. Blackrock Mountain has a whole bunch of stuff in it. Basically, Blackrock Mountain sits between the Burning Steppes and Searing Gorge. You have Ragnaros in there and Molten Core, as I semi-speculated on some of the news that various data miners and similar Hearthhead, Hearthpawn, etc. found last week. So at least Molten Core is a part of it, if not the entire thing. So Blackrock Mountain, there are going to be, like Nexramas, 5 different wings. Like Nexramas, each of those wings is going to unlock week by week by week, and the release date at the moment has been announced as next month, so it's going to be in April 2015. We're not entirely sure when in April, of course, that's going to be, but I'm sure we'll find out more in the coming weeks. So very exciting stuff. Blackrock Mountain was a very iconic area of World of Warcraft, particularly in vanilla if you played it towards the beginning. It had the 2 biggest raids in the game. It had Molten Core, and it also had Blackwing Lair when that was released. You could fight Ragnaros, and then also the Black Dragon Farian. There was also Blackrock Depths as an instance in there, and then Blackrock Spire that was split into 2 parts. You had Upper Blackrock Spire and Lower Blackrock Spire. So between those 2 and those other bits and bobs, you have the 5 different pieces. Thanks to Rajanorg, who managed to tune into the Blizzard stream. He said that the first instance is going to be none other than Blackrock Depths. So before we take a look at what Blackrock Depths will entail, I'm sure week by week until announced, until release, Blizzard will be releasing info on each wing week by week. They did that last time. Have a little look at the new game board, of course. You can see, I think that's Corin, I'm going to say Diabrew. I can't quite remember his name. And a big welcome to those live. Siege Edge, Rajanorg, Umbra, great to have you with. You can see a nice little Blackrock Mountain board there. You can see, well, of course, in the top left, that's Sulphurous, Hammer of Ragnaros, one of the legendaries that can get crafted from the original Molten Core raids in World of Warcraft. Very exciting. A little bit of a Dark Iron Forge, I think that's from Blackrock Depths also. I cannot quite remember what this is. I hope someone can help me out with that. But that's definitely the Dark Iron Forge that used to be in Blackrock Depths as well, I think, by the looks of things. So a nice little themed board there for Blackrock Depths. Looking forward to clicking all of that incessantly and seeing what it all does, because that's the most exciting thing about the Hearthstone board, seeing what little Easter eggs and similar have been popped in there. So you get yourself in new game boards. Corin Diabrew, I was correct. So there's an example of one of the bits of arts that's been released. He is apparently, thanks to Rajanorg for mentioning, the Whelps Where Leroy is. Very good shout there from Rajanorg. Maybe Leroy Jenkins is going to be a boss. That'd be quite exciting, wouldn't it? So Corin Diabrew, he is in Blackrock Depths, in the Grim Guzzler. It was one of the most epic big instances in vanilla and original World of Warcraft. Blackrock Depths, how to describe it. It was ruled by Dagran Tharisian. He got corrupted by Ragnaros, and then the Dark Iron Dwarfs, Tharisian's dwarfs, basically got enslaved by Ragnaros. So if you've been playing Ragnaros in your Hearthstone deck, you've not played WoW and you wonder who Ragnaros is, well, big bad elemental causing trouble within Blackrock Mountain. So the Black Anvil was also in there. used to make dark iron equipment. Some of it had fire resistance, very, very useful. And it had loads and loads and loads of bosses. Absolutely loads of bosses. We've got a few bits of the concept art here. You've got Rend, he's actually from Upper Blackrock Spire. Can chat about him in a little bit. And some of the other dwarfs that you're going to be coming across on your merry way, including the swarming dwarfs that come in Corundibri, so we can clearly see that he's going to be the bosses of one of the wings. Now, to give you an idea of the sheer scale of the amount of bosses that there are actually in Blackrock Depths, I'm just going to pop on over to Whalehead and show you this. So what this will show you is that was all of the different things that you could fight in Blackrock Depths alone. Now if we look back to Curse of Naxxramas, each wing had, the first 4 wings had kind of 3 bosses, first 3 wings had 3 bosses, one of them had 4 bosses, the last one had 2 with Kel'Thuzad, Frostwoman had Saphiron and Kel'Thuzad, so a total of 15. You are not going to be able to I'd love it if it was true. It would be a huge expansion, but I think it's very unlikely that we're going to see the good 20 plus odd bosses in one wing of Blackrock Depths, in one wing of Blackrock Mountain. So it's going to be a selection of bosses, some of the interesting ones, maybe perhaps the big boss at the end of each and a couple along the way. It'll be interesting to see how they pick. Some of these were harder fights, some of them were a little bit less interesting fights, but it was an epic instance, so it'll be interesting to see what Blackrock Depths looks like, I fancy. Next up after Blackrock Depths, Molten Core. Now there's a separate video, if you're on YouTube, I'm going to link it at the bottom here. I've already done a full run through of Molten Core. Long story short, Ragnaros rules the place. He has bunches of elementals, big raid in World of Warcraft. You had to fight your way through, I think it was 8, 9 bosses. I'm going to go with 9 bosses before hitting Ragnaros himself, and much fun to be had in there. Legendaries as well, Thunder Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker, that warriors would go for and some very lucky rogues would go for. Interesting maces, and then my favourite thing, weapons for priest. There was a wonderful priest staff called Benediction, and it also could turn it into a shadow variant called Anathema. There was also Rockdalar and Lokdalar, I believe it was the bow and the stave of the Ancient Keepers, a hunter weapon, fantastic quests. In one of my previous speculating videos, I was really hoping that priest weapons would get introduced. I think that was quite far-flung, but it would have been very exciting. Hey, in World of Warcraft, priests have weapons too, as do mages and a bunch of other people who don't have them in Hearthstone, but I think that's a very big balance thing. To introduce weapons to a new class is pretty unlikely for an adventure mode, maybe with an expansion. Leaves the option open. So Molten Core is number 2 wing. Thank you to Raj who spotted that on the stream earlier. After that, if you're going in order, you've had Blackrock Depths, you've had Molten Core. It would then probably make sense to have the 2 Blackrock Spires. So you had Upper Blackrock Spire and you also had Lower Blackrock Spire. 2 pretty fun instances. UBRS got a bit of a makeover recently. So if you're a World of Warcrafter, you would have gone back into Blackrock Spire for the first time in quite some time, and you had a whole bunch of fun bosses that you could run around and take a look at there. There's a few bits and bobs of the Black Dragon flight, so you were sort of running into people being controlled by Nefarian, who's obviously chilling out in Blackwing Lair, and there was a fire resist buff, I believe. You could pop into here and grab a fire resistance buff that would help you when you went into Blackwing Lair, so it was very often that if you went raiding Blackwing Lair, you would jump into UBRS, I think, first, or LBRS, to grab that fire resist buff before you'd move on. So again, a whole bunch of bosses here. Very unlikely you're going to see all of those. I'd imagine you'll have Drakisath, who's quite iconic. We've already seen Rend as a legendary, so for the upper wing there's sort of 5 bosses there. You could have all 5 bosses, maybe 4 or 3. For UBRS it's a bit lower. I can't remember huge amounts about those fights as to which of those are quite iconic, but you'll have probably a good selection of 3 or 4 from there, I'd imagine, and again hopefully a good selection of 3 or 4 from there too. Of course, if they were all there, I'd be delighted. Righty then, when you've done your UBRS and your LBRS, then last but not least, Blackwing Lair. I caused what my guild still remember as one of the greatest wipes in the history of my guild in Blackwing Lair. I'd come back into raiding as a priest. Razorgore is the first boss. Now, I'll just tell you a little bit of a story about Razorgore. Razorgore, as a boss, Dragonkin mobs, they basically think of a rectangular room, and Dragonkin mobs come in from all different corners of the room, there is a mind control orb that you have to use. So if you use that mind control orb, you can effectively turn some of the mobs against each other, as far as I can remember. I need to go back and have a look at the fight. But as soon as someone walks in, the encounter starts. Now you need people to control basically the 4 different corners of the room. You have a small group at each corner of the room. If everyone's in position and doing their jobs, then it's all good. If someone's not in position, someone's not doing their job, or if a group dies, then all of the NPCs from that corner of the room swarm and overtake everyone else. So it was a very balanced thing. My raid leader said, "Okay, are we ready?" And I heard that as ready, so I just ran on in on my own and triggered the entire start of the encounter, and no one else was ready, and I had to pay a lot of gold for the people's repair bills. So Razor Gore could be a very interesting encounter. Blackrock Mountain, obviously you'd get your tier 2 gear, so Molten Core would give you your tier 1 epic gear to start with in Warcraft Vanilla, and this would give you, and you get the tier 2 pants, the tier 2 trousers off of Ragnaros in Molten Core, and then you get the rest of the tier 2 gear in Blackrock Mountain. So a nice place to finish up. You'll probably finish up fighting the Farin. Crow Magus was an interesting fight. Firemore Ebon Rock and Flame Gore. The Broodlord was an interesting one as well. So there were some quite interesting fights here. Whichever 3 or 4 of those they pick, if they do pick 3 or 4, they'll all be quite good, interesting fights. I don't think you'll have, from what I remember, all 3 of those. You can probably have 1 of those. Crow Magus and Farin would be quite a good way to finish. But Razor Gore was just such a fun fight. I'd really be disappointed if they didn't have a little look at that. Okay, so that is sort of Blackrock Mountain in a nutshell. You can have your 5 wings. Blizzard have confirmed, as per Curse of Naxxramas, that you're going to be able to grab a legendary. As soon as you've beaten each wing, then you can immediately get a new legendary. So you'll get a whole bunch of cards. That'll be quite exciting. Is it 5 legendaries? I better not go too crazy there. When you clear a wing for the first time, you'll be rewarded with that wing's legendary card. So Rin Blackhand is the first. Lots of cool stuff to mean. Dragons, that's what I should mention. I'm actually going to pan on over to the cards now. So if you just bear me for a little bit. There we go. Perfect. You've lost my face. Some people might not see that as too much of a loss, but we'll get it back up. So here are the cards. Now I'm actually going to go through and do a little bit of a separate review of these in a separate video. So if you're on YouTube, check out the link that I'm going to post. We'll do a little bit of a card spoiler here, but just having a look at this, you can see you have things. You have Hungry Dragon, Dragon type. Bless you. I do apologise. My dog is having a little bit of a cough there. You can see if you're holding a dragon, gain +1/1. So dragons in Goblins vs Gnomes, you always had mechs as a type that's being buffed and having stuff done with it. Clearly in here, dragons are the thing. A lot more of these scaly, fire-breathing, adventure-crunching creatures as you brave the mountain. So it's going to be interesting to have a look at dragons and seeing how, as a family of cards like mechs, like Murlocs, how the dragon family is buffed and used will be interesting indeed. But for a separate card preview and spoiler analysis of these, we're going to do that separately. So that is our quick look at Blackrock Mountain. There's going to be a heroic mode as well, so just like Curse of Naxxramas, you can run through and do them all on heroics, which are quote unfair unquote, and will no doubt cause a little bit of rage. So it should be very, very interesting. I can already see people calling their decks King of Dragons and Queen of Dragons after a certain Thrones related show and putting them on various popular deck building sites near you, but we'll wait for that to happen. We'll just enjoy it when it comes. Brilliant stuff. So that is the news. That is a little update on Blackrock Mountain and what's going to be coming up. As we said earlier, it's scheduled for release simultaneously on PC, Mac, iPad and Android next month. It's the 6th of March today, so next month could be anything from early April onwards. Now, given that there'll probably be a weekly reveal every single week, I wouldn't count on it perhaps being immediately at the beginning of April. I think as a very sensible ploy, anyone who's releasing a game will give themselves a bit of wiggle room. So let's keep our eyes out from April, but I think that every week we're going to get a few more cards to be spoilt and to analyse and take a look at. Ooh, that's the final thing. I believe that there's going to be 31 new cards with Blackrock Mountain, so exciting stuff. We've already got the first 5 here. and we'll take a look at some more of them as we go along week by week. We'll probably get maybe 2, 3, 4, maybe a week, and then there'll be a few left over at the end waiting to be discovered. Of course, there'll be class cards as well, so it'll be interesting to see what the class challenge cards are and exactly how those might affect the game. Looking forward to exploring. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you on YouTube take a look on the left, you can see our card spoiler video for Blackrock Mountain when we take a look at those 5 cards in a little bit more detail. Take a look at the right. If you subscribe, you can find a whole bunch more Hearthstone there. So thanks very much for tuning in. This is Blackrock. I've been Hammy. Hopefully see you soon, and do comment, like, subscribe, let us know what was good about this, what we can improve for you. If you're live on stream, do not go away. We're going to be taking a look at those cards and spoiling them a bit now. If you're on YouTube, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully see you soon, and take it easy.